emotions are important as a catalyst to take action. The reason why we'll choose to upend the status quo will usually be driven by emotion. But then we have to let our minds take over and to assess and analyze choices and make the smartest decisions that we can.
Your network is your net worth. Come listen to some of the most successful people I know share invaluable knowledge, stories, and advice in real estate, business, and beyond. This is Reisz Advice. Whether you want to take your business or personal life to the next level, look no further. Welcome back to Reisz Advice. I am your host, Yonah Reisz, and it gives me tremendous pleasure to talk to someone today who's probably one of the smartest guys I know. You know, they say, don't be the smartest guy in the room. So if I'm ever in the room with Bernard, I don't have any problems whatsoever. So without further ado, let me just introduce Bernard Reisz, CPA, and all kinds of other alphabet soup after his name. What's going on, Bernard? How you doing today?
Great to be here. I am so excited about doing this show with Yonah Reisz. We've crossed paths so many places, real estate connections, meetup, LinkedIn, Facebook. It just feels so at home, and it's always great to see your smile.
And many times in person. I think whenever I'm in Brooklyn, Bernard's one of the first people I look up to have a coffee with or lunch or whatnot. So it gives me great pleasure to do this, even though we're Zooming and, miles away. But a little bit about Bernard, okay? He is who I affectionately call Tali, but we're not going to call him that on this podcast because no one will understand what that means. But he is the founder of ReSure Financial, right? 401kcheckbook.com, agentfinancial.com. We're going to put it all in the show notes. Guys, this is someone who lives his life helping people with their self-directed retirement accounts, empowering others to take control of their financial situation. So, Bernard, tell me, how did you get, because you're a CPA, okay? You have a license and you have a bunch of other licenses. Tell me about those licenses and what kind of brought you to the retirement space?
That's a great question, and I'll give you all the context, all the details. Hopefully, we won't give you more than you asked for.
Yeah, let's keep it short.
So the short version of this is I've got kind of every kind of financial license and certification out there. And my background's actually not in technical finance or technical tax. In my background, my family, all small business owners, people that don't have that kind of expertise. And I kind of grew up without that. And I got to observe my family, although, financially they achieved wonderful things, something was missing. And I kind of set out to say, all right, I'm going to master this area, the technical aspects of tax and finances. And in order to achieve that, I realized you have to know every component of a financial profile. If you only understand the tax part, you're going to miss things. If you only understand the investing side, you're going to miss things. If you only know insurance, you're going to miss things. It's really about being able to take a holistic and integrated approach. And only then can you really get things to where they have to be optimally.
Right. Awesome. And so you were dealing, first before you started this company, ReSure Financial, helping people with their, retirement accounts, self-directing them. You were, like you said, had a securities license and, an insurance license. You were doing other things. What led you to, find a space and create your own company within the kind of empowering other people to self-directing retirement accounts?
When you're in the kind of traditional financial space, you're a CPA and you're helping people, you'll find that those that introduce the greatest amount of financial strategy to you or tools or suggestions will be so-called financial advisors and life insurance agents. And as a CPA, I was kind of due diligencing a lot of the things that were put forth, suggestions that were suggested by life insurance agents and financial advisors to high net worth individuals. Mm-hmm. And upon kind of doing the due diligence, really checking out the tax basis, the tax positions, the tax risks involved in all of those, I realized that these are all they're presenting all sorts of stuff and only
Yeah.
telling you half the story. The real risks behind them are not being presented. And again, that's not to say that the strategies are no good. It just means their clients, and in those cases, they were our mutual clients,
Right.
were at risk of making uninformed decisions. Of course, everybody can take on risk, but it has to be an educated choice.
Yeah.
So that's what kind of led me to the space where you're self-directed and we're putting you in the driver's seat so you can kind of make your own choices without being tied to somebody else selling you products.
Yeah. And these type of, I guess, people or, advisors and things like that come across in every industry whatsoever. So, are you finding any difference within the self-directed retirement industry that, people are giving more informed decisions about your finances and about your retirement account, and you kind of feel more comfortable in that role?
So I'm more comfortable with what I do, which is giving people control and really giving them the education, telling them about the yeses, the nos, and the maybes. But with regard to the space overall, what I found is people are people. Mm-hmm. And in every industry, there are going to be people that are upstanding and they're going to try to do the best by their prospects and clients. And there are those that will not. So frankly, what I've learned is there's not a great distinction between whether you're investing in mutual funds and life insurance policies, or whether you're being sold some other financial product. Mm-hmm. In every industry, there are people that are trying to do right by you, and people that won't. It's just the way human beings are.
Salespeople are salespeople, and they can find their way into any industry.
Yes, and I don't like faulting salespeople because sales is a wonderful thing. Right. Sales is a wonderful thing. I know wonderful people that are in sales.
Yes.
But Agreed. There's a way of doing sales which is, taking advantage of people's lack of knowledge about a technical area.
Yes.
And then there's a way of doing sales saying, hey, this is a great thing for the right person. And if this is what you're trying to achieve, this can be a great tool for you. But beware, this is how you use it, and this is how you don't use it. The wrong version of that is where you kind of tell somebody, you kind of try to conceal a lot of that they have to know, sell them on something, move on, and you may have just given them enough rope with which to hang themselves.
Right.
Sales is great when done with integrity.
Right. So give me an example, without getting too technical, right? And I see this all the time also with plenty of different financial products, even with cost segregation, right? We'll have people that are going to try to sell the product without really understanding what it is, or, perhaps understanding it, but not telling all of the downsides. And people ask me when I'm interviewed on podcasts all the time, well, what are the downsides of cost segregation, right? And there's a list, okay? There's a laundry list. So the question is if it's going to be right for you. In many cases it is, but in certain cases it's definitely not. So in retirement accounts, right? Give me an example of some type of misinformation or people being presented with certain products without understanding the ramifications of those, because the shiny object, right? You have, this great tax savings and great tax shelter and everything like that. But what are they missing out?
So there are, in this space, there are lots of different account types. And then there may be folks out there that have gone ahead and try to market something in a way that conceals exactly what the account type is that they're selling. And investors don't know what they're signing up for. They do not know the rules. And frankly, if you do not know what type of retirement account you have, you can't possibly play by the rules. So that's definitely going on out there. People may feel great because it may have a certain cachet associated with it, because it's being presented as something novel and new and innovative. You're getting your money. And so people may have this account. They may feel great because they got control of their money. They're controlling it. It's gone into some sort of real estate deal. But that doesn't mean the liabilities aren't there. Because if all you have is a piece of paper, but from a tax perspective, you shouldn't be using that type of account, or you're not operating the account the way it should be, then you're better off without having that account. You want that shiny object if you actually know how to use it and you know what the shiny object is. So surprisingly, I'm finding people that have a retirement account that they're investing in real estate, but when I ask them, so what type of account is this from a tax perspective?
Yeah.
How would the IRS classify this? And they just know a whole bunch of buzzwords.
And they don't know because they signed up for some, right? They signed up for some product, offering them financial freedom, right, through using their retirement accounts, and it has this, fancy, shiny words to it, and it's marketed great, and the person selling it may have been interviewed on hundreds of podcasts and maybe really, for example, and when it comes to the nuts and bolts, the person who's holding it, which really is the one who has to bear the risk, doesn't even know what they have signed up for.
Exactly. So it doesn't mean that there's necessarily anything wrong with what they signed up for. It's just impossible to know. It's a bit of hit or miss, but also if they don't know what type of retirement account they really have, they can't manage it, right? So 401k plans have to be maintained a certain way. When you operate a 401k plan, there are technically a couple different roles that have to be played. Now, those roles, you may have one individual or one service provider that's doing all those roles, but there are about 5 or 6 different roles that have to be completed, right? Just like when I say an accountant and a tax strategist are 2 different roles, but of course, your accountant can also be a tax strategist. He can wear 2. They're distinct roles, but you can have them both in a single individual.
Hats. Yeah.
Right. So when 401k plan, for example, any type of QRP, qualified retirement plan. So you're going to have a document provider. You're going to have an administrator. You're going to have a trustee. You're going to have an investment manager, right? You're going to have the sponsor. These are all sorts of different roles. Now, you don't have to have 5 different service providers, for that. But if somebody is presenting you as saying, hey, we're giving you a 401k plan, we're giving you QRP, but all they're being is a document provider and are not looking out for any of the other roles. So you may think, hey, I've got a QRP. You've got a piece of paper, but you may not have the operational support that you need and the guidance to know whether or not you can actually have that QRP. So if you have that piece of paper, it's just a piece of paper.
Gotcha. Okay, let's switch gears here for a little bit because, obviously we can go on about this for ages. It's something, a topic both of us feel passionately about, clearly, because, we kind of take a different stance than many in this area. The 2 of us, speaking, my own mind, I think we share this in that education about financial, topics is really the best form of sales in a way, because you can provide, and this is, really what I do with Constant Segregation is I just provide as much information as possible, educate as many people as possible, so that when they know about that, they'll know who to go to, which is a great, tool. Anyone who's listening to this, I think it's probably one of the greatest, in our day and age, the greatest tools in, building up warm sales is that secret just by itself. So, but let's switch gears to that because within that, you are a small business owner now as well, right? And you're running your own company, and you have a lot of clients, and thank God, helping a lot of people become financially free by educating them. What are some of the challenges that you have had in setting up, this kind of small business or this kind of, role?
That's a good question, and I'll give you a very frank answer. So as somebody that is, you can say, CPA, various licenses, done an incredible amount of studying, reading tax code, analysis. So very much cerebral, very logical, very technical, but in a way that kind of goes beyond like most people, think of tax code, they dread it. And frankly, most accountants never look at tax code. right? It's tax code is not something that, and that level of analysis is not something that excites most people. And I love it. And then the question gets out there when you have a business, you have to deliver the product, and that deliver a product properly. A technical product requires technical expertise, but you've also got to sell it. And selling it means interacting with people and kind of it seems pushing certain emotional buttons. And people what gets people going is emotions. And sometimes what seems to sometimes get to people is if their emotional buttons get pushed, they overlook the technical side. So
gotcha. And that really goes back to, what we were talking about before, right? With kind of the emotional buttons of the financial freedom and take your retirement account, put it in your own hands. And, you get, this is the best type of thing you can ever get, right? Yeah. So go on.
So I think emotions are important as a catalyst to take action, right? And as human beings, we're all like that. The reason why we'll choose to upend the status quo, make some sort of radical, life-changing move, will usually be driven by emotion. But we have to then say, okay, the emotion is the catalyst, but let's analyze this with our minds, because ultimately there's technical aspect to it. So we need the emotions to kickstart the process. But then we have to let our minds take over and to assess and analyze choices and make the smartest decisions that we can.
Yeah. And it's a challenge with, anyone who's marketing their services, right? Any company whatsoever, because you want to be able to, market to the right people. And part of the, strategy of marketing is using those emotions to create that catalyst that will trigger, into action, right? The call to action and everything like that. So if it's not presented the right way, then you may not ever get to the next step. But I definitely hear what you're saying, that you have to be careful when doing that to be, intellectually honest with yourself and with those people, that what you are actually presenting is true to the product itself.
And giving people all the information that they need. And so, when you get up front with all this technical stuff, that can intimidate people. So you need to, I guess, things that, to me, I love it. You have to recognize, hey, take a step back, take it slowly. Don't overwhelm people with this tax information. It's, I may have it coursing through my veins, but for most people, they have to kind of give them the information, but in a way that they can digest it and, and really take action based on that info.
So it is challenging. I totally agree with that. And part of what I've developed myself is, presenting cost segregation, which is a very complicated topic, not anywhere nearly as complicated as retirement accounts, because the tax code, regarding 401ks and, QRPs and the IRAs, et cetera, are much more complicated, much more complex. But, I've come up with a method of presenting it in a way that is, more palatable for most to understand and to take action. So I definitely hear and empathize with that challenge that you have. And I think you've done a pretty good job of, coming on many podcasts. And, if anyone wants to get into the technical side of, understanding the difference between a 401k and an IRA and all the stuff there, you can just check out Bernard Reisz. Go to his website. He's been a guest on probably 50 or more podcasts discussing in detail so many different aspects of these. So I urge you to check that out. We're going to jump right into the final four, Bernard. Our time is limited today, but I do appreciate you coming on, sharing with me. I hope we can do this again. And we actually did on one of our Real Estate Connection virtual meetups a few weeks back, which you can check out our YouTube channel where that's posted. Bernard went into the difference between some of the technical aspects of those, how to invest in real estate the right way and the wrong way. So we can get into that. But the final four, number one question for you is, what's the worst job that you ever had?
The worst job that I ever had. So when I began my career, one of the roles that I had was in a firm that did due diligence. due diligence, and agreed upon procedures. So it's kind of going over to companies and analyzing things and seeing how they're performing, where they can do better, and also for investors to understand potential weaknesses. And coming into the position, so I was entry level, but I had suggestions. I'm the kind of person that questions everything.
Yeah.
And it was frustrating to be in that role where everybody kind of just does, okay, there's a template. These are the kind of procedures that we do. And I came in, I was like, why do we do it like this? It would be better if we did it like that. And, maybe we can, we're checking for this. No reason to check for that. There's a much easier way to do it, but we're not even looking for this kind of thing. What about that concern? And when you're at the beginning and they're like, just do what you're supposed to do. Don't ask so many questions. So that was, I think, frustrating in the sense you have great ideas, but there's kind of a hierarchy and there's people between you.
You gotta know your place.
Exactly. So in a way, it was rewarding to see just a year later where all my suggestions were implemented. But then it also comes with this feeling of why do we have to wait a year? If these were good suggestions 12 months ago.
Oh, yeah. I can relate to that. Okay. Yeah, definitely. Okay. Question number 2, Bernard. What's a book you've read that has given you a paradigm shift?
I have to think really hard. So I'm going to go with What the Angel Taught You.
Is that your final answer? No, I'm just kidding. That's a great book. Okay. What the angel taught you. So what is that book?
So the premise of the book is that when we approach life, there are, as human beings, there's an incredible amount of paradigms and choices that we have to make: conceptual, emotional, psychological, moral, religious. And it can be confusing. If we listen to all the talking heads that are out there, we can have our heads spinning. Sometimes we can even use that as an excuse to avoid making decisions ourselves and thinking for ourselves. Because, all right, there's an opinion, every way is acceptable because every position out there has somebody advocating for it. And what this book is about is no, you were born with what it takes for you to make decisions yourself. Take a step back and realize the answers are within you. Just check those emotions, be objective, put aside the noise, think for yourself, and reach conclusions.
That's a great summary. Okay, so everyone's got to check this book out, What the Angel Taught You. Okay, because I can vouch for the teachings in it and all the things that Bernard just summed up over here. So yeah, check that out. Number 3, what is a skill or talent that you would like to learn?
I think we'll use that as an extension of our discussion.
Yeah.
Which is kind of, I don't know if it's a skill or talent you want to learn, or maybe, you know what? I'm gonna respond to that with I'm gonna counter with another question.
Okay.
Is it really important? Is it really important for every one of us to master certain skills, right? I recognize perhaps that there are roles for each of us to fulfill. And it's not a deficiency not to have a certain skill. On the contrary, every deficiency is the flip side. It's the other side of a token, the other side of a strength, and vice versa. Every strength is the flip side of some sort of weakness.
Absolutely.
So there really is no strength or weakness. It's just recognizing what we are meant to contribute. And then when we all collaborate and come together, there's just beautiful harmony.
So maybe, that's beautiful. Maybe we'll say, the skill is to find the right people to do the roles that need to complement your best talents or something like that.
That's amazing.
Okay, perfect. And what does success mean to you, Bernard?
Success means being able to live life in alignment with real values, not to get lost in the noise. And then you can end up, ironically, in this place where you neglect your raison d'être because you're getting caught up in your day-to-day. And I think that's Real success for me would be able to say that I'm living each moment in alignment with the ultimate purpose.
Wow. That is quite profound. Okay, everyone's gonna think about that for a little more. We'll leave you with that. And Bernard, we already mentioned a few ways people can connect with you. We can reach out to you, and we're gonna put them in the show notes. But where can people find you?
Best place is 401kcheckbook.com. Obviously, there's agentfinancial.com. And sometimes I just say, Google Bernard Reisz. You'll find all sorts of great content, great resources, which will lead you to nirvana.
And with that, we will leave you with nirvana. Cue that. No. Thank you very much, Bernard. It's always a pleasure talking to you. It's always a pleasure having you, just having a conversation, whether casually, professionally. I value you as a person, as an advisor, as someone who provides so much value to so many people out there. And, continue doing that. I wish you much success. And, I appreciate you coming on.
Thank you, Yona. Thank you for having me. It's always just pure joy to be with you, whether in person or Zooming remotely, and continued success. Keep doing what you're doing, and we will stay in touch.
Oh, man, thank you. And to all our listeners, thank you. I appreciate you guys taking the time out of your day to listen to this. And remember, the best advice comes only when you ask. Real quick, I have one question for you. Did you like this episode? If you did, I want to ask you a huge favor. See, the biggest thing that helps this podcast grow and that will spread this message to the whole world is that if you leave a review, a rating, and subscribe to the podcast. What that does is it basically tells the platforms that this podcast is out on is that you like my stuff and I'm doing something right. So take a few seconds out of your day, hit that subscribe button, leave a rating or review. I would be extremely grateful. Also, I want to hear from you guys. So I want to hear some feedback. If you have any questions for future episodes, please find me on LinkedIn. Send me a DM, connection request, Yona Weiss, and I'd love to hear from you.